House Bill 2662 relating to the neglect of foreclosed or residential real property and declaring an emergency.
Question now arises upon third reading and final passage of House Bill 2662. Representative Frederick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I bring you House Bill 2662, the product of several rounds of negotiations and several iterations in an effort to craft a real solution to a real problem. As the incidence of foreclosure grew over the past 5 years, so did the incidence of vacant and neglected properties. The usual remedies that neighborhoods and municipalities have used to deal with the problem properties presented new barriers, as it's often difficult to identify an owner, someone with responsibility for the property, in the case of foreclosed properties. And this is not merely a problem of aesthetics. In Oregon, April showers don't just bring May flowers, they also bring August tender when vegetation growth isn't reined in. Squatters have turned some properties into drug labs or camped in the structures, allowing garbage to accumulate. In other words, the problem for the neighborhood can take many forms. The evolution of investment banking practices have made the question of ownership of real property in foreclosure extremely difficult to pin down. Where municipalities have sent workers in to remediate the public safety problems on these properties, they often ended up absorbing the cost because they did not know where or to whom to send the bill. I'm going to take a little detour here, so if you'll pardon me, and comment on the process that got us into this, got the bill to where it is before you today. I am indebted to my colleague from Southern Oregon for his work on the bill. His amendment simplified it and made it more flexible and created a better solution to the problem. Several legislators met with bankers and realtors about this concept and then about this bill over the course of the legislative sessions from 2010 until now. In some cases, it was much like the mortgage modification process. Quite a few constituents have described this process to me. Changing requirements, shifting information, and in the end, a response that ignored some important information. In committee, 3 amendments were discussed and debated, and finally a -4 amendment that reflected those discussions was adopted. And I believe you all received an email in your inbox from a representative from the Bankers Association. The odd thing about it is that it chiefly references the bill before we had any amendments. Most of the issues that are raised have already been addressed through the genius, frankly the genius of the legislative process. For example, the email starts by opining that the definition of owner needs to be narrowed because the introduced bill referenced purchasing the property at a trustee's sale or a sheriff's sale, making the condition of being a foreclosed property open-ended. In fact, that provision has been removed from the bill in front of you. The email refers to potential conflict with local nuisance ordinances. The bill before you is permissive. It provides a remedy that local governments may use. They are not required to. If they want to use it, they need to coordinate that with their own ordinances. And there's no prescribed time frame in which they must begin implementation. The email talks about treating properties differently based on the nature of the owner. In fact, that was changed in the amended bill in that the obligation to pay for remediation of nuisance conditions attaches to the property, not to the owner, in the form of a lien. The bill no longer provides for fining the owners, which would have necessitated creating a bureaucracy to levy and attempt to collect these fines. The bill authorizes a local government that finds it necessary to remedy a nuisance condition to attach a lien to the property for the actual costs, and to have that lien first in line for the payment when the property is finally sold. I can understand the banks being less than enthusiastic about that, but their job is to preserve the advantages they have, and this provision, frankly, is very fair. It should be noted that this bill only applies to vacant properties. The letter you received claims that a durable notice of responsible party contact information would be an advertisement to potential squatters. The problem with this notion is that the condition of being vacant itself is in itself an advertisement to potential squatters. Providing neighbors with an answer to who you're going to call just gives them a basic tool to start the process of addressing a neighborhood nuisance. Finally, the letter claims that the emergency clause fails to allow time for implementation. As I noted earlier, since the bill is permissive to local governments, they can make their own timelines. This way they will know what they have to work with. This bill doesn't address the causes of this problem. I agree that there's a difference between small community banks and large investment banks, and though it's still a wonderful life, the Bailey Building and Loan is not really in the picture this time. But this bill is not so ambitious. It just gives neighbors a simple tool to deal with one aspect of the fallout from what happened to our economy in 2008. Colleagues, Oregon is fourth in the nation for so-called zombie foreclosures. Those foreclosures in which the homeowner has moved and the property is vacant. That's according to Realty Track. More than half of all the foreclosed homes are vacant in Oregon. Colleagues, this is a big deal for our neighborhoods all over the state, communities of any size and any density. This bill gives neighbors and municipalities a very basic tool for controlling the local effects. I want to thank the representative from Southern Oregon again for his insights and his work on House Bill 2662. This bill comes to you with a unanimous do-pass recommendation from the House Committee on Consumer Protection and Government Efficiency, and I urge you to join them with an aye vote.